Writing an introductory paragraph. Here's our learning objective for this video. In this video, you will investigate how to write an introductory paragraph that captures your audience's attention and adequately introduces your topic to the reader. Now let's take a look at Ms. Martorana's pyramid for writing excellent introductions. You start with the hook. You're going to capture your audience's attention with a specific quote, interesting fact, or anecdote. Then you go on to general background information about the topic to fill in your reader. Then you get some main supporting ideas about the topic, and then finally you end your introductory paragraph with a thesis statement. So the general idea is that you start general and you get more and more specific as you progress toward your thesis statement. Now let's look at each of these steps. Number 1, the hook. Think of how you will catch your reader's attention from the very first sentence. Some ideas for an opening sentence are: tell a brief, humorous, or emotional story, share an interesting fact, share a humorous or inspiring quote, ask an open-ended question that will make your reader think. Whatever you choose for your hook, make sure it is strong enough that you will be able to reel in your audience with the rest of the paragraph. Do's and don'ts for a good hook. Let's look at the do's. Does the prospect of writing an essay fill you with the strong desire to curl up in a ball, suck your thumb, and cry? Or, I never enjoyed writing essays in middle school until I learned a trick that completely changed my perspective. Or, almost all students write essays in middle school, but few students report enjoying the process. These are some examples of good hooks. Now let's look at some of the ones that are bad. Please don't give me any hooks that look like this. Have you ever written an essay? Well, that's just too vague. The answer is probably yes, and it doesn't really make someone want to read anymore. It's just a simple answer. Yes. When I was in middle school, I had to write a lot of essays. It's a story, but it's not really that interesting. I think that's probably true for everyone. Everyone could have that same story. When I was in middle school, I had to write a lot of essays. Another one I don't want to see. 100% of students have to write essays in middle school. It's a fact, but it's not really that interesting. It's kind of something everyone already knows. So now let's look at some general background information. That's step 2 of your introduction. After your hook, you always need to consider who your audience is and what their background knowledge of your topic will be. The more specific your topic, the less likely your audience will be well informed about your topic, so you need to inform them about it. To keep your audience from being confused, you need to briefly provide background information on your topic. Let's look at an example. For example, if your topic is why I appreciate America's veterans, you need to explain to your reader what a veteran is, or what you mean by appreciation. You need to define the term so there's no confusion. So an example. For the over 200 years since the United States became an independent nation, courageous men and women have served in the armed forces to protect our nation. We call those individuals who have served our country veterans. So we've given a little background information. What are we talking about when we say veterans? Step 3, main supporting details. You want to consider the point that you want to make in your essay. Come up with your 3 strongest details that support that idea. Each in its own sentence, each of those 3 strongest details, state these details as a way to preview what will come later in your essay. You're introducing what you're going to be talking about later. Typically, your 3 main supporting details in your introduction are the topics of each of your body paragraphs. If you're writing a shorter essay, you might not have 1 body paragraph per supporting detail that you mentioned in your intro, but generally you want these main supporting details to be important enough that they are going to dominate the rest of your essay. So let's look at an example. So if our topic is which season is the best, One supporting detail might be, in autumn, the temperature is just right. Second supporting detail, winter is dangerous. And 3, the foliage in the autumn makes beautiful scenery. So each of these 3 details supports the idea that autumn is the best season. So the sentences in my introduction that include those 3 main supporting details might be, the temperature in autumn is ideal for a number of activities and purposes. The foliage of the changing leaves makes beautiful scenery. Autumn is a much safer season due to its mild weather. So that wouldn't be the introduction in its entirety, but that would be a section of the introduction. Because you end your introduction with your thesis statement. Your thesis statement is the most important part of your entire essay. This is the one sentence that you use to clearly state your overarching point. Your thesis should be 1 sentence long. Sometimes, if you have a very complicated idea, you may use 2 sentences. But for the vast majority of topics you'll need to write about in middle school and even in high school, your thesis will be able to be stated in simply 1 sentence. Your thesis should be clear and complete enough that it can stand on its own and still make sense. You shouldn't need your supporting details to convey your thesis. Your thesis ends the introduction paragraph, so it should be your last sentence before your body paragraphs. Let's look at some do's and don'ts for thesis statements. Let's look at the do's, the good examples first. You want to be clear. Studying for tests is of the utmost importance. Be concise. Studying for tests significantly improves performance. Make strong statements. Studying with flashcards is indubitably the most effective way to prepare for a test. Now let's look at the don'ts. These are some weak thesis statements. You don't want to be vague. This is why it is so important to study for tests. Well, what is this? You can't refer to something that you've already mentioned because otherwise the thesis statement doesn't stand on its own. If I take it out of context, you don't know what those reasons are. You're confused. Don't put it at the start of your paragraph. Don't make it too complicated or specific. For example, studying for tests, especially using flashcards or study apps such as Quizlet, really helps improve performance. That's a poor thesis statement because it's too specific. It includes those supporting details in the thesis statement. You want to just broadly say that studying for tests helps improve performance. And another don't make it personal. This opens yourself up to debate and it weakens your claim. So don't say, in my opinion, studying with flashcards is the most effective way to prepare for a test. Here are a few last no-nos for introductory paragraphs. For an excellent essay, don't use any of these types of phrases anywhere in your essay. The purpose of this essay is to, I will explain to you, in my opinion, I think that my thesis is, these are all just terrible things to have in your essay. Now, you try. Go ahead, try drafting your own introductory paragraph. Once you're done, revisit this PowerPoint and make sure that you didn't miss anything.